Good evening, everyone.
Hi, Paul.
Hi. Thank you all for coming. We're very happy to see you. And welcome, hearty welcome to all of you. So last time we spoke about juicing, right? How many of you that were here last time have juiced at least one time? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. At least one time, maybe a few more. Yeah, that's good. I know my mom has juiced at least 10 times or more. I think I maybe helped her out once. But I know I definitely drank the juice a few times myself. And I was also able to enjoy, on the juicing machine, I was able to have make some. So that was really good. But today we're going to talk about how to beat the silent killer. How to beat the silent killer. Does anyone know what the silent killer is? We all should know. That is hypertension. Hypertension is also called high blood pressure, hypertension. So you'll see those two terms used interchangeably today. So today we're going to look at the definition of high blood pressure. We're going to identify statistics and normal values. We're going to identify the causes and the effects of high blood pressure. And we're going to discuss 7 ways to treat it and to prevent it and to even reverse it naturally without medications. So let's talk about the etiology of high blood pressure. What is high blood pressure? Here we have an artery. Blood pressure is the measurement of force that is applied to the wall of the artery. So blood pressure is determined by one of 3 things. It's number 1, the force behind the blood, the force that the heart is pumping with. Number 2, the amount of blood being pumped. If you have more volume of blood, you're going to, of course, increase the blood pressure. And then the size and the flexibility of the arteries. So if the artery wall, for example, thickens, if the artery gets narrower with atherosclerosis, fat clogging up the vessel, then you're going to have more blood. You're going to have the same amount of blood flow going through a smaller diameter, which in turn is going to increase your blood pressure. So let's look at some facts about hypertension, some facts about high blood pressure. I was actually pretty surprised about these facts myself. 1 in 3 adults have prehypertension. So 1 in 3 adults have prehypertension. 1 in 3 adults have hypertension or high blood pressure. So that's 66% of Americans right there either have high blood pressure or have pre-high blood pressure. And we're going to look at some of those values later. What is hypertension? What is prehypertension? And amazingly, 1 in 5 adults, or 20% of people, don't even know they have high blood pressure. That's why it's called the silent killer. And it costs the U.S. $46 billion every year. And 360,000 people die every year, or 1,000 people die daily with hypertension as listed as the cause of death or the main contributing factor of death.
What age are you saying the adult? Is it starting at 18 or is it 21?
18. Honestly, I'm assuming 18, but I didn't look.
Oh, that's okay.
But yeah, because with most statistics, they count adults as 18 and up. So let's look at some blood pressure ranges. You have this chart here. If you're in the blue, that's too low. Your blood pressure is too low. Some people can have it too low. And that would be a systolic blood pressure of less than 90 and a diastolic less than 60. So before we start talking about these numbers, let us first define everyone knows blood pressure consists of 2 numbers. You have your top number and your bottom number. The top number is your systolic blood pressure. The bottom number is your diastolic blood pressure. So the systolic blood pressure is when your heart beats or contracts and your blood is pumping through the arteries. That's your top number. So when the heart is contracting, your blood pressure is going to be at its highest. That's why the number is higher. And then diastolic is when the heart is relaxing. So that's between your heartbeats, and that's a lower number. Your heart is not pumping. And they say that the systolic blood pressure, the pump of the heart is about 1/3 of a second. And the relaxing phase of the heart is about 2/3 of a second. So your heart is relaxing about twice as much as it's pumping. Now let's look at the numbers here. Less than 90 for most people is too low. That's hypotension. That's not good. You could normally be feeling dizzy, lightheaded. Less than 60 for diastolic would also be considered too low hypotension. But we have to remember that everyone has slightly different values because God made us all different, and all of our bodies are different. You know, so some people, their normal may be 92/50, and they may be perfectly fine with that. Other people's normal may be, 138/75, and they're maybe perfectly fine with that. So everyone has a little normal, different from the normal. What they're saying is normal blood pressure is between 90 and 120 over 60 to 80. So anything below 120 over 80. You're considered as being prehypertensive with a blood pressure of 120 to 139 over 80 to 89. And unfortunately, that's a pretty common thing. I know even myself, sometimes when you go to the doctor's office, you get that white coat syndrome. Or maybe you're running late for your appointment, you're stressed, you go in, and I've had my blood pressure a couple times, 130 something. That's not normal for me. I'm usually like 110. And then high blood pressure, stage 1 hypertension is 140 to 159 over 90 to 99. And then stage 2, as you can see, is 160 or higher over 100 or higher. Then you're having a high blood pressure crisis or emergency when your systolic is 180 or more over 110 or more. And unfortunately, many of the patients that I take care of at I work at Roanoke Memorial Hospital, many of them oftentimes do have their blood pressures above 180. So that's why one of the reasons why they're there and they're receiving medical care. That is an emergency. And if you would have a blood pressure like that, you would want to go to your doctor right away or, contact them at least. So how do you know if your blood pressure is high? What do you think? Symptoms, right? For most diseases, if you have cancer, you'll have symptoms of the cancer. But unfortunately, with blood pressure, high blood pressure normally does not have any signs or symptoms, according to the CDC. So to know if you have high blood pressure, you have to check it. And you have to check it regularly. But how often should you check it? Centers for Disease Control and Prevention recommends that you check it, if you check it at least once a day, but check it consistently for over a few weeks. That way you have an idea, your doctor has an idea what it is. Because one reading here or there can be, completely different. And I have a question. Can blood pressure be high even if you don't have symptoms? Definitely. Many people are living with high blood pressure and they don't even know it until they find out. I was reading about a man who was a physically fit specimen. He was in the military, in a special group in the military. He was skiing, doing all kinds of things. He was slim, young in his 20s, and when he got one of his physicals at the military, the doctor told him, if you have severely high blood pressure, you're going to have to be dismissed from the service. And it was in his family history. So he looked like he was perfectly fit, He didn't know. So let's look at some of the effects of high blood pressure. Unfortunately, high blood pressure has a lot of effects in the body. And many times those effects happen to people over time, over the years. You may not have it right away, but if your blood pressure is high consistently over a long time, you're going to have some of those effects. It affects multiple areas of the body, multiple organs. As you can see in the picture, one of the two main common things are strokes or cerebrovascular accidents. The other thing is heart attacks. So 8 out of every 10 strokes are caused by high blood pressure. And for heart attacks, the first heart attack that people have, 7 out of 10 of those heart attacks are caused by high blood pressure. You can have, if your blood pressure is really high, there's something that's called hypertensive encephalopathy. which is basically like a disease of the brain, an acute temporary disease of the brain. Because of your high blood pressure, you can have confusion, headache, seizures. I see some patients like that. If your blood pressure is so high, some of your eye vessels can burst, some of the small vessels in your eyes. Eventually, with untreated blood pressure, you can have heart failure, where your heart just becomes enlarged. And the common thing is kidney failure, chronic kidney disease. And a lot of people have to go on dialysis. I had a lady yesterday. She had high blood pressure for many years, and she looks healthy, but she's been on dialysis for over 5 years, probably primarily because of high blood pressure. So, what are some causes of high blood pressure? We have one cause here, and we can see that that's salt. We'll talk about that. The CDC, or the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, list several causes. One of them is a diet high in salt or a diet low in potassium. Another is tobacco use, alcohol consumption, lack of exercise, and obesity. Now, these are the causes that we think about when someone mentions high blood pressure, why they got it. But there actually are some causes that are many times forgotten, and we'll look at those here. They're causes that we don't really remember. They're less thought of or less known. And these are here, your genetics and family history. That plays a big role. So you can have changes in your blood vessels related to other conditions or diseases that could affect your blood pressure. Stress is a big one. I know that affects all of our blood pressure. Obstructive sleep apnea. That's when you're sleeping and your body doesn't breathe, and then you wake up and you take these big gasps, and then you start breathing again. That's obstructive sleep apnea. And then there's certain medications that can have a side effect to raise your blood pressure. Tumors, chronic kidney disease, thyroid problems, hormonal changes. So basically, the bottom line is a lot of things can affect your blood pressure. So we shouldn't, say, oh, this person, their blood pressure is high because they didn't live a healthy lifestyle or they didn't, do that. That was my takeaway from this. And the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute, 2016, indicates that persons with high blood pressure can have it for a large variety of reasons, many of which are out of their control. So let's look at how to prevent, treat, and reverse hypertension without medications. There are many blood pressure medications out there, and they are actually very useful and necessary. In fact, so I work in a PCU, which is a step-down unit, cardiac PCU from the ICU, and many times we have people with their blood pressures, like I said, way high, over 200. And if they're not treated quickly, within minutes, within hours, those people can have a stroke, they can have a heart attack, and they can die. And thankfully, we do have medications that can be given to them IV to bring down their blood pressure, and so they can get treatment so the doctors can, see what's going on and treat the underlying cause. But, the problem is with medications, what is the problem? Common problem with most medications? Side effects, right? Side effects. Sometimes you'll take a medication for one thing and it'll cause you dry eyes or itchiness. Then you have to take a medication to treat that or something else. So there are actually ways you can reduce blood pressure, treat it, and prevent it without medications. But it doesn't mean, if you're taking medications for high blood pressure, it doesn't mean, okay, I'm going to start some of these lifestyle changes, I'm going to stop my blood pressure pills tonight. You don't want to do that and end up in the hospital. So instead, there's dietary changes, there's lifestyle changes that can be used, to reduce taking your medications, if not get you off of them completely. So tonight, we're going to look at 7 ways. I came up with 7 ways to reduce your blood pressure without side effects. And the first one is nutrition. Eating a good, healthy diet. So what kind of diets? Diets high in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, beans, and high fiber foods. Fat-free or low-fat dairy products. Reduced sodium. Saturated or trans fats, actually trans fats we should avoid totally, and reducing added sugars. Multiple randomized clinical trials have shown to decrease blood pressure when animal products are exchanged for vegetarian products. And that was shown to decrease blood pressure in both persons with normal blood pressure and persons that have high blood pressure. So that was from multiple studies, but if you're still going to eat meat, choose the healthier meats, the lean meats. Now, why do you think plants and vegetables reduce blood pressure? What do you think happens? I mean, they're healthier for you, right? They have less fat. But what do you think they have? Yes, very good. Actually, plants and vegetables have 3 important minerals that help maintain a normal blood pressure. One of them is potassium. You always heard of the potassium and sodium balance. The other one is magnesium and calcium. So those are 3 key ingredients to maintain a healthy blood pressure. And all of those are found in fruits and vegetables, specifically in vegetables. So here we have a couple pictures. We definitely know the picture on the left would just skyrocket your blood pressure. It may taste good, but it's not good for you. Unfortunately, a lot of the fat and cheeses and stuff like that, they clog up your arteries, and like we were talking earlier, that makes your artery vessels smaller in diameter, thus increasing your blood pressure. So the second way to reduce your blood pressure is by reducing your sodium or salt intake. That's, of course, if you're eating too much. But most Americans do. So the recommended sodium intake is 1,500 milligrams by the American Heart Association, although the American American Diabetes Association and the American Academy of Nutrition and Diabetics says you can do up to 2,300 milligrams. So they're saying, the American Heart Association says 1,500 milligrams of sodium, when you got a couple other ones are saying 1,500 to 2,300. So 1,500 is approximately 70.7 or 70% of a teaspoon, and 2,300 milligrams of sodium is a teaspoon. Now, how much are Americans eating? How much do you think? Not as much as sugar, but we're eating too much. So Americans are eating an average of 3,400 milligrams, 3,400, over twice the recommended by the American Heart Association. And this sodium is found a lot in processed foods. So here's the problem. Salt makes food taste good, right? When you have some chips or when you have something, let's say you made a dish. If it doesn't have salt, it has no flavor. It doesn't taste good. But if you add salt, it tastes good. But the good news is our taste buds regenerate after 30 days. Our taste buds change. So let's say you started a new diet with lower salt. After 30 days, for 30 days it might be pretty hard. But after 30 days, you'll make new taste buds, and then you're going to actually enjoy that food. Yes?
I have a question. Is any disease actually caused by too low sodium in your body?
There are diseases. I don't know them specifically, but I know there are. Like, for example, go ahead.
Said their mom has mental,
Dementia?
and they would find out the blood has not enough sodium.
Never heard that. Did their doctor tell them that?
Yeah. So
Could be the case, but for most Americans, we get too much.
right.
Yeah, but there was a story of in California. Maybe some of you have heard. Several years ago, they had like a radio contest to win. I don't know if it was $500 or what, for the person that could drink the most, drink a gallon of water the fastest. And there was this lady that drank 1 gallon, and she died. She died the same day because she diluted her sodium in her body. And sodium is very important for function of your cells. It's important for your heart. It's important for many things. So, of course, you could, but for most people, it's not. But there are probably certain hormonal issues that cause your body to not retain salt or sodium. Now, the long-term effect of reduced salt intake or reduced sodium intake was shown by a Cochrane systematic review and meta-analysis. Let me just tell you something about systematic review and meta-analysis. Those are basically a review of many studies. Those are a review of the top studies. So those are the highest level of evidence for research. And this study in 2013 showed, with reduced salt intake, it showed about a 5-point decrease in the systolic number, systolic blood pressure, and almost a 3-point decrease in the diastolic blood pressure from reduced salt intake. That may not seem like much, but when you add that with some of the other things we're talking about, when you add up those 5 points, 10 points, it adds up. So let's just take a look here. So look at some of these foods. I want you to guess. Like, let's say corn chips, for example, versus corn flakes. Which one do you think has more salt in it, more sodium? Corn chips. How about peanuts versus tomato soup, a can of tomato soup? Yeah, the cans have a lot. Sauerkraut versus an Egg McMuffin. We'll take a look here in a little bit. How about potato chips? We know potato chips are loaded. Potato chips versus 1 cup of instant mashed potatoes. Mashed potatoes? All right. So there's a few more. There's French fries versus ice cream. There's, all of these things. So let's take a look here on this next slide. Yeah, the tomato soup is loaded with sugar, but the Egg McMuffin has more. And you were right. The potatoes, I wouldn't have guessed about the potatoes, that they have more. The mashed potatoes have more than the potato chips. Isn't that surprising? Okay. Really? Yeah, that's weird. Because sometimes you think you'll taste it in the food, like you taste it in potato chips, you taste salt in corn chips. So that means that just because we think we taste the salt or we don't taste it in a certain food doesn't mean it doesn't have it. And what shocks me is ice cream actually has almost twice as much as French fries. That's amazing. I guess they just add the sugar to, cover it up. Yeah. Which one? Oh, rice Chinese style? I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe.
Fried rice.
Is it fried rice?
I guess.
I wouldn't know. That's how they just put it.
The rice Chinese style, I looked it up. That was a mistake. It's about 700.
Oh.
But there's rice with shrimp is about 900. And I think it's only like 3/4 of a cup.
That means that is not rice cooked with water.
No. This is processed rice that you buy in a package.
Instant rice.
Instant, and usually they have Thai rice. I went to the store today looking at products. But if you make it from scratch, you control what you put inside.
Nothing, just water.
Pardon me?
Just plain rice.
Just plain rice. But you see, many people don't have time to cook, or they don't know how to, so they like to buy things ready-made. And that's the problem.
you.
salt bombs, a lot of these foods that can really shoot up your blood pressure.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, so, and cottage cheese. Cottage cheese has a lot too. So, we looked at sodium, we looked at nutrition. Next, we will look at, what do you think? We'll look at something else. We get looking at a kitty cat, and what is she doing? Water. Drinking water. Now, what does water do in the body? When you drink water, what does it follow? Water follows sodium. Okay? So when you drink water, it's going to increase your blood pressure initially, right? And we would think, hey, you're drinking more water. How is that going to lower my blood pressure? It does increase it initially, but water, pure water, like tap water, spring water, that doesn't have any added sodium. That's free of sodium. So the good thing is when it enters your body, salt follows it. And when salt follows it, salt actually continues to follow it until you urinate it out. So when the water leaves your body, sodium goes with it too. That can also help your blood pressure. So drinking more water can essentially lower your sodium. Of course, if you have congestive heart failure, if you're on dialysis, if you're supposed to be on a fluid restriction, you don't want to be drinking too much water. Now next we're going to look at exercise. Exercise is another thing that can be used to reduce your blood pressure naturally. Now this was amazing research to me. I knew exercise was good for your blood pressure, but I didn't know what types of exercise specifically. So another systematic review, so the top level of evidence type of research, systematic review that was done in 2012 was published on behalf of the American Heart Association, and it discussed 3 types of exercises: endurance exercise, dynamic exercise, and isometric exercise. So those are 3 different types of exercises, and as we see from this study, from this review, each of the different types of exercises have a different effect on blood pressure. So what do you think endurance exercise is? Endurance training? Running, bicycling, jogging, swimming. That's endurance exercise. Walking, yes. How about dynamic exercise? And dynamic exercise is actually when you do movements of the joints. So aerobics would be more endurance. Dynamic would be like weightlifting, bicep curls, squats, bench press, leg presses, stuff like that. So we see endurance lowers your systolic blood pressure, the top number by 3.5, and the diastolic by 2.5, right? The dynamic by 1.8 and 3.2. Now, what about isometric? I was like, wow, what is this? It lowers your systolic blood pressure, the top number, by over 10 points, and the bottom number by over 6 points. So I looked up isometric exercise, and that is actually holding a position in the same spot. So examples of that would be like, let's say you squat with your back against the wall. You just hold your squat. You're not actively like pumping your muscles, but you're holding it. Another example could be, let's say, they do these sometimes for repairing, like if you injured a muscle or something, they do that to help you, when you do physical therapy. Another thing would be, for example, pushing against a wall. That's the isometric exercise. You're not moving the wall, but you're just holding force against the wall. Like, for example, let's say you go down into a push-up position, just holding that position, not going up and down, doing a plank. Yeah, plank, yes. Plank is just basically they tell you to try to hold it for 30 seconds or a minute for your abs, but it's hard. So those are isometric exercises. And we see the differences in what it shows right here. So you can see some examples of isometric exercises right here. I don't know how clear it's going to be. As we mentioned, push-up, plank, squat, hold, calf raise. That's actually fairly easy. And I'm not sure if this is true or not, but when I used to go to the gym in Maryland when I lived there, one of these guys that was working out for a while, he said he does his calves every day because he said that's the only muscle you can do every day. So he exercises his calves every day. You can just hold your arms out. Hold your arms out, hold them straight ahead. That's an isometric exercise. All right, so let's look at the fifth way. Would you like me to go back to that slide? Or did everyone?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yes.
It says, what it says here is, for level 1, so a beginner level, if you're just starting out, you could do 3 sets and rest for 2 minutes. I would say like a plank if they're telling you to hold it for probably a minute is hard, even if you start out with 30 seconds. Hold it whatever you can hold it. Even if it's 15 seconds, you start like that, then you increase it. Let's say 2 weeks from now, you can be doing 45 seconds in a minute.
One leg squat, or you sure?
One leg squat hold, that's difficult. That would be just like squatting on one leg with your other leg in the air and holding it. Some of those are, like the balance stand. That's a difficult. I don't even want to try that. So exercise is the fourth way that we're talking about to reduce your blood pressure. So we saw that through reducing your sodium, you can do what? Reducing your sodium, you can lower your blood pressure by around 5 points, the systolic. Doing the isometric exercises, you can lower the systolic by 10 points. That's a 15-point reduction just from doing 2 things. Now, sleep. What is sleep's effect on blood pressure? Another systematic review, the highest level of evidence by Pellegrini, 2013. Their research shows that inadequate sleep increases blood pressure and increases the risk of high blood pressure. Not getting enough sleep. And sleep deprivation increases blood pressure in persons that have high blood pressure already or don't even have it in males and females. That's from young adults all the way to the elderly. Now, the interesting thing was everyone at risk was shown to develop high blood pressure in women across all ages, but only in men up to 60. So I guess men after 60, if you're not getting enough sleep, it's not affecting your blood pressure, according to this systematic review. And middle-aged adults were still at risk for developing high blood pressure from lack of sleep, even when they were controlling other risk factors. So if you're middle-aged and you're not getting enough sleep, but if you're eating healthy, if you're reducing your salt intake, if you're drinking enough water, you're still at risk to get high blood pressure from not sleeping enough. And they were showing, the study was showing that less than 6 hours of sleep we know you should probably get 7 to 8 at least, but they were showing that less than 6 hours was increasing the blood pressure of persons. 6 or less. So the next thing we will talk about is the environment. This is the 6th thing. And you want to make sure you get enough peace, rest, sunshine, fresh air, and vitamin D. A German study by Balbach et al. 2014 showed that there was an association with traffic noise and high blood pressure. So they looked at people where they lived, and they showed that there was if you lived where it was more noisy from traffic on a busier street, you had higher blood pressure. They also showed if you live within 100 meters of a busy street, you had higher blood pressure. So if possible, live away from major roads. Another interesting study that was done in 2015, it shows that industrial noise increases blood pressure and heart rate. of industrial workers. So people that are working in factories, which is a lot of noise, that increases your blood pressure and heart rate. And if you do that, maybe you could wear earplugs or, those headphones or something like that. And what else? Stress management. That's another way to reduce blood pressure. If stress makes you, that's one of the common things to make your blood pressure rise, that's also a way to lower it by managing stress. So there's some things there. Slow down. That's good for all of us to remember. Keep calm. Be positive. Take it easy. Unplug. Enjoy life. Have fun. Breathe, Take a big breath sometimes. Just take a big breath. Relax. Go outside. Enjoy the nice fresh air. Smile. Meditate. That's from the Harvard Health Publications. And yes.
Are you going to talk about what type of meditation?
I'm going to talk about it here. So we're still talking about stress management, and it shows that there's a study that shows by Pan 2015 that there's an association between anxiety and increase of risk for hypertension. So if you're anxious, or if you have anxiety temporarily or long term, there was definitely a risk for having higher blood pressure. So the Harvard Health Publications recommends some steps to reduce your blood pressure by reducing stress. Some of those steps are doing several things. Learning to relax. So deep breathing, listening to relaxing music. Another thing is improve your social network. Make friends. Maintain healthy relationships and friendships. Number 3, time management. Time management helps with stress, right? Time management, managing your time, having a schedule. Number 4, nurture yourself. Take care of yourself. So what does that mean? Go get a massage. Do something nice, do something fun. Go for a walk, take a nap. Do your favorite activity. Take a break from cooking lunch and go out to lunch with a friend. And ask others for help. If you feel like you're stressed, ask others for help. And then the last thing, we talked about meditation earlier. This was a big point to me. Ask God for help. I'm doing nurse practitioner school right now, and I've been in nursing school, it seems like, ever since I graduated high school. I've been in college for like 7 or 8 years, and it's difficult. You get sick of it. But lately here, for the last many years, and even in nursing school, the biggest thing for me to overcoming my stress and just passing my tests in school has been asking God for help. And there's that verse that says in 1 Peter 5:7, casting all your care upon him, casting all of your worries, anxieties on him, for he careth for you. And the 7th way, I believe it's actually the 8th way, we had a number messed up there, is through, you can control blood pressure or reduce it through supplements. So there was an evidence-based review done by NAHAS in 2008 that showed these following things as reducing blood pressure. One of them was dark chocolate. Another one is vitamin D, but that's vitamin D in persons that are already deficient. So if you're deficient, then you need to get the normal amount of vitamin D.
Can I ask a question about vitamin D?
Yes,
What's the difference between vitamin D and D3?
that's the same thing.
It's the same thing?
It's a-
They added that little 3 at the end.
Yeah. I mean, go ahead.
D3 is the active form. Oh, okay. So that's the one your body immediately absorbs. D2 will not increase your vitamin D levels. 3 is the one I've been 3 is the one to get, yes.
And of course, the best way is sunlight, if you can do it. And also in 2 studies, melatonin was shown, in 2 trials, melatonin was shown to lower your blood pressure. Does everyone know what melatonin is? Melatonin. Pardon me?
When I was in the hospital,
They gave
walking the halls at 2 o'clock in the morning, and they gave me some melatonin.
you some
But
melatonin.
I wanted more, but they wouldn't give me any.
So
It
the
didn't
one
do
help
too
you
good.
sleep?
Yeah, it helps you sleep. You can buy it over the counter. Your body produces melatonin. Your brain normally produces melatonin. But sometimes our body is not producing enough, or if we're not going to sleep regularly at the same times, we may not be producing melatonin at the right times or enough. Yes?
I was going to say, it's the time-release melatonin that lowers blood pressure, not the regular melatonin. So you have to get the time-release, which gets slowly released in your body.
Or another study showed if you want your own body to produce enough, go to bed at least 2 hours before midnight and try to do that regularly. I know that's hard for some of us, but then your body will produce enough, and you may not have to take melatonin. That will help with your blood
I
pressure.
always heard that when you get older, though, old like me, that your body loses melatonin.
That could be true. So you might have to buy the over-the-counter form. You can buy it at Vitamin Shop, Kroger.
That won't be addicted, though, will it? If you
No.
have the time release?
It's not addictive. Honestly, after a while, it seems sometimes it loses its effect. It might work good for a while, but then your body gets used to it. But hopefully by then your body is used to a sleeping schedule. Yeah. And it goes out in your urine, so you can't build up, toxicity or anything. Just take whatever it says in the bottle. Now the last thing, coenzyme 10. The other name is CoQ10. I've actually seen a doctor prescribe this to one of the patients I was taking care of. So CoQ10, this is amazing research. This was done in a meta-analysis. And in this meta-analysis, it showed that systolic blood pressure was lowered by 16.6 points and diastolic blood pressure by 8.2 points. That was in one meta-analysis. And in other studies, systolic blood pressure was lowered by 13.5 points, and diastolic blood pressure was lowered by 10.3. Yes?
You know how much?
In this study, it might vary for people, but in this study specifically that I was talking about, from NAHAS 2008, the persons were taking 60 to 120 milligrams for 6 to 12 weeks. So they were taking them 60 to 120 milligrams for 6 to 12 weeks. But they sell it in different quantities, But of course, if you're on other medications, you want to talk to your doctor because some of these medications can interact. And many doctors are actually familiar with CoQ10, and they can prescribe it to you so that your insurance can pay, or they can make sure it doesn't interact.
Aren't you supposed to take it if you take a statin like Lipitor?
Yes. It's good too, yes. So in this study by NAHAS 2008 says that in many cases, and in many of the studies in that meta-analysis, patients were able to actually discontinue their blood pressure medications from using the CoQ10 because it reduces it so much. So in conclusion, we discussed what is high blood pressure, what are the normal ranges, what are the normal values, how your blood pressure is raised. We also discussed, some of the effects of high blood pressure, what it does to your body systems, and some of the causes. And we looked at the 7 ways, or it was 8 ways, to prevent, treat, and reverse high blood pressure without medications. Thank you.